Welcome back, everyone, to Finding Fitness: Foundations of Strength and Conditioning. Um, this is session 8 that we're working through now today. The the topic of today is uh, 5 surefire ways to build a solid foundation for strength training. So, as we discussed in the weeks past, there's a lot of information out there about what you should do, how you should do it, ways to get the most out of training, and so on and so forth. And again, a recurring theme through this course that we've been delivering is just kind of cutting through a lot of that information and kind of coming away with some foundational basic kind of concepts that will serve you in the pursuit of your goals within the realm of resistance training and strength and conditioning. So um, we're going to kind of like key in on one specific discipline today, which is developing strength. So um, and again, going back to those more fundamental types of ideas. So um, I wanted to talk about these 5 things and just how important they are and how much they will serve you, regardless of how you decide to pursue the goal of increasing your strength. So the first one is building a competency in the fundamental movement pattern. So within the realm of strength, we're talking about maximum force over any amount of time. So speed is maximum force in the minimum amount of time, and strength meaning just absolute maximum loading. So you're not worried about moving fast, but you're worried about moving the greatest load possible. In order to do this, you have to have that underlying movement quality that will serve you, that will put your musculature and your body in the right positions in order to effectively and efficiently move these heavy loads. So these fundamental movement patterns kind of make up the basically all of strength training. So we have the squat, the lunge, the hip hinge, which is essentially like your pulling position, your deadlift, basically anything where you're picking something up, or like lowering it towards the ground. So the hip hinge, the vertical press and pull, so that would be like your military press or your chin up or your pull up. And then the horizontal press and pull, that's your rows and your bench presses. And then also finally the plank, or like your isometric core contraction. So these movements make up essentially all of strength training. Now there's some work through the transverse plane, some rotational movement that can come in handy and is a great accessory to your training. But this kind of is the vast majority of what you'll be doing. So learning how to move through those positions safely and effectively will serve you forever, and it will give you a foundation to build that maximal strength in a safe and efficient manner. So, um, yeah, it's really valuable to understand those concepts and really master them, whether it's with body weight or with really light loads. Take the time, develop that efficiency and those competencies, and it will be forever valuable to the pursuit of your strength goals. The next thing, the second point, is learning how to breathe and brace. So a lot of lifts are made or missed because of your positioning. Again, talking about effectively using your musculature and your levers to move the load. Um, it's really important to have control of your breath and to have control of your abdominal stability, which it has a massive effect on your ability to transfer force through your body. So whether you're pushing into the ground to pick up a deadlift, or pushing into the ground to stand up with a squat, or even pushing through your feet to create stability while you're doing a bench press, that core is where that energy is kind of being transferred from the lower portion of your body to the upper, and you really need that. And as we talked before, your diaphragm and your breathing pattern is actually a part of your core. So having those two things consistently being an asset as opposed to a liability will also again be part of a solid foundation for your pursuits in terms of strength. So we're talking about taking big, strong breaths in through your stomach and bracing and holding that position so that your core is engaged while you're doing the eccentric portion of the movement, which is the lowering phase, whether that is, when you're lowering the squat down or when you are lowering the bench press toward your chest. That's a little trickier in the deadlift because you're starting, there's only the concentric portion. So the bracing actually happens before you go to pick up the bar off of the ground. So you get tight, you make sure that your core is engaged, you have a good solid breath, you're holding it, and then you're engaging it and moving into that concentric motion. So learning that skill of your breath control and transitioning between reps and bracing your core effectively again will serve you in the same type of way that understanding and moving through a full range of motion in those fundamental movement patterns will. They are basically they're two of the same things. Like that just kind of establishing that movement quality and that good um, that good understanding of how to effectively move a load. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is more of a contextual thing as opposed to like a practical application. So I wanted to talk about what people call maxing out. So performing a 1 rep maximum to find out what your absolute strength is. So again, we're talking about strength. Your absolute strength is the absolute most weight you can perform, and that would only be for 1 repetition. If you can perform it for 2 repetitions, theoretically, you can do more weight. So an absolute strength maximum involves doing just 1 single rep. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about maxing out and how to kind of contextualize it within your strength training. So try to avoid the urge to constantly test your limits with single rep maximums. Strength is built over time through repetition and volume at moderate to high intensities, not on the testing day itself. Um, Additionally, when you are deciding to do those heavy 1 rep maximum lifts, you have to maintain that the form and that movement quality. It has to be comparable to those established movement patterns. We're talking about establishing that squat movement pattern, that horizontal press for the bench press, that hip hinge for the deadlift. It has to be comparable. Now, I'm not saying that you might not have some breakdown in form, and we'll talk a bit more about how to glean information from those breakdowns, but some breakdown is acceptable, but creating a different like lever or range of motion when you're doing those maximum lifts creates something that's not actually representative of the strength or of the movement that you're usually performing. So the idea of like not squatting to the same full range of motion that you've established in that movement quality and that fundamental movement skill, it doesn't it's you're selling yourself short in it, and it's going to make your training harder over the long term if you're going to use that as your maximum. Now when you use percentages to dictate your lifts in the future, it's going to be a lift that isn't really representative of that movement quality. So now you're going to further degrade your movement quality by trying to recreate similar percentages and repetitions that you've done in the past with this new maximum that isn't actually representative of your skill in that movement pattern. So it's really important to maintain that quality. So making sure you're hitting the same depth on the squats, making sure you're always touching your chest on the bench press, making sure that you're managing your back in a safe manner, keeping a mostly neutral spine on those heavy efforts, so that you have again a movement that is in the same vein as those movement patterns that you've established. Really, really important, because it kind of starts, if you do it well, you create a positive feedback loop where you demonstrate really good technique constantly. You perform a 1 rep maximum using basically 90% of that technique. You might see a breakdown here or there, but you get the most out of it. And then you go back in and you keep training again, and you have something very representative of where you're at in your current ability. And it's safer as well. You're putting your body in less stressful positions and making sure that you're using the right levers to perform the movements. Now you have this positive feedback loop where you're kind of building on top of every training cycle, and you know that your last max was done with a good weight and good form and within that context, and now you can replicate it. Whereas when you get really into these crazy positions and you make your form different, now it's going to be really hard to continue building on that. So really, really important to keep that movement quality at those high intensities if you really want to continue safely and effectively building on your ability to express your strength in these movements. Number four, tracking your workouts. So again, kind of going through some different type of context here. Um, Tracking your workouts really, really valuable. And we're not just going to talk about writing down your sets and reps and your weights. We're kind of even digging a little deeper into this idea. So it's really beneficial to know what you've done in the past, obviously, so that you have an idea of what you're capable of, you have an idea of what your abilities are, and you have an idea of what your programming has looked like in the past as well. It's really good reference point. And if you do this for a long time, it'll be really neat to look back on it and see how much progress you've made. It can be a really um, cherished possession to have your old training programs and see like just how far you've come. We kind of talked about more about that on like the mental and non-physical benefits of training. So it's cool to have. But I want to about this more in terms of building a uh, being able to create programming or being able to effectively improve things that may not be keeping up to par with everything else. So when I track my workouts, I track the intensity. So I track the repetitions and the sets that I perform, and I track the weights. So I write all that down. But after each exercise, I add in a quality score out of 5, which is basically just an indicator of 5 being this felt great, it was easy, I moved well, with 1 being this was terrible, I didn't do as many reps as I was supposed to, or I had a really bad positions, I had really bad movement quality. I use that quality score, and then underneath it I write a little note. And the key is to write that note right after you finish the movement. So you're sitting there, you're about to transition between exercise. An example of something that I would do is, I put down my quality score, say like, say it's a 3 out of 5. So obviously there's some room for improvement. I would say, say I'm doing an overhead move. And I say, my right shoulder was, feeling a little iffy, or I feel a lot weaker on my right side, or I'm constantly like my last 2 reps were really hard. So I have some sort of context for like how that session actually went, not just what happened, but what happened and how it felt relative to like my other workouts. So now when you finish a program, you can look back and you say, oh, you know what? All of my like Tuesday workouts, I was saying that my shoulders bugging me, or that my grip is really bad on this one side. And you can think like, okay, now when I'm working through my next program, I'm going to take some measures to improve these qualities. Or like my knees always caving in when I squat, so now you know that you need to do some strengthening in like your glute med, or like in your quadriceps, to make sure that your knees can travel out when you're squatting and that they don't buckle in. So having that feedback, it's more honest to do it right after you finish an exercise, as opposed to just reviewing it afterwards. You have a different bias on it, as opposed to like that immediate kind of feedback. It's really, really valuable. It'll really, really serve you in the future if you so choose to add that notation to your workouts. The last point, something that we've really talked about again, is just putting quality absolutely first, and then building the quantity with that. So strength training, as I referred to earlier, is not about the maxing out those max out sessions. It's really about building up that work capacity and the repetitions that you've done with really, really good form. So the more reps that you can do with really good movement quality and really good technique, and the more you can load that and put that time, like every single set is like a building block for your strength in the long term. So it's really, really, really important to emphasize that. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse a little bit here, but just really emphasizing that movement quality, and really putting your best foot forward to make sure that you're getting that you're building on every session, as opposed to having those ones where you know you're putting your body at risk for injury. You're using muscles and levers that you shouldn't be using for the movements, and just like kind of continue focusing on that, building that positive feedback loop of like good form, good sessions, making progress, steady progress, having something representative of exactly where you're at, as opposed to having the ego get involved and having um, you know making decisions that aren't in the long-term interest of your training, but in the short-term interest. And I guess that's like a greater point of what I'm trying to say, is that you really want to keep the long-term in mind, when you're training. So one set is not very important in the grand scheme of things, but doing one set really well is great. Doing one set really poorly can have a massive negative impact on your long term. But so it's really, really important to just keep that concept always top of the mind. So those are kind of the five things. Again, just 5 points that I thought would be good to just kind of either refresh or just to kind of go over to contextualize strength training and kind of how to have a solid foundation for working towards absolute strength. So we'll get into the training session now after this. If anyone has any questions or comments, we'll quickly answer those, and then we'll jump into the training session for today.
Hey, seeing none. Sounds good, Logan. Looks like we're good to go.
All right. So today for the training session, we're going to kind of it'll be a mix of some things that we've done already, and we're just going to work through we're going to work through 3 sequences and a little cool down. So today we're going to start out, we're going to do a push-up plank hold to child's pose and a lunge pulse. We're going to do 5 reps of the push-up to plank hold with 5-second holds, and then we're going to do 10 lunge pulses per leg, and then we're going to go on to our training sequence. So again, I'm going to demonstrate one set of each of these, so there's so you have some understanding of how to perform the movement properly. If you're training at home, I would recommend doing 2 or 3 sets of each exercise, and building on your capabilities, in the context of that movement quality. So we'll get started. I think that'll be good there. So start out with the push-up to child's pose. Bring it down. So you're good. Okay, so start right here. Brace the core, nice and tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back into child's pose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go back and forth 5 times. Keep bracing your core in the plank hold. All right, now we're going to get up. We're going to go into the lunge pulse. So we set our lunging stance. Okay, we're going to drop the hips straight down and back up. 10 per side. Other side now. All right, so that's our warm-up for today. I performed two rounds of that if you're following around at home. The next thing that we're going to do for our first training sequence today, we're going to do an exaggerated lunge step with a 3-second isometric hold at the end of the step, and we're going to do 4 of those per side. We're going to pair that with the side plank and reach, something that we've done in previous sessions. We're going to do 5 side reaches per side. So big for the exaggerated lunge step, you take a big step, bring your knee up as high as you can, step out as far as you can, and then hold that long, elongated lunge position for 3 seconds, pop back up, and we'll repeat. We'll do 4 on each side. And then the side plank and reach, you can either use a water bottle or just your hand to do these. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate those now. Down here. So exaggerated lunge step. Big, knee up as high as you can, step out, down, 1, 2, 3, back. Yep. Step out. 1, 2, 3. Push back. Yep. Step out. 1, 2, 3. Back. Last one. Yep. Step out. 1, 2, 3. Now same thing on the other side. Yep. Step out. 1, 2, 3. Back. Yep. Step out. 1, 2, 3. 2 more. Good. And then now we're going to go into the side plank and reach. You go down. You're going to use your water bottle as a weight. Keep it out in front of you. Now the key here is to reach straight out in front of you and then straight over your head, not to reach back really far, just straight up. So in this plank position here, reach up towards the ceiling, back down, do 5 of these. Switch sides. Same thing, so shoulder or elbow underneath your shoulder, hips up nice and high, reach out in front of you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the first sequence of the day. Really important with those exaggerated lunge steps, getting your knee up as high as you can, challenging that stability aspect for a second, and then stepping out into your lunge. And again, getting nice and comfortable in that lunge position, the same way that we talked about establishing that movement quality and how important it is. So the second sequence that we're going to do, we're going to do Bulgarian split squats. So we're going to do 6 per leg off of a chair. Find a nice and stable chair for this. If you can't do these, you can just do a regular squat, or you can just find a way to elevate your back foot a little bit, even just anything a little bit higher, just to kind of create a similar challenge. So Bulgarian split squats, we're going to do 6 per side, and then we're going to do dips on the same chair. Afterwards, we're going to do work to your own level, but we're going to do about 10 bench dips. So we'll go into those right now. I'll demonstrate this sequence for you, and we'll keep on going. Go. So the Bulgarian split squats, we're going to hold our backpack like this, have our foot, top of the foot down, take a step out, and you're just going to drop your hip down, stand back up. A little bit further here, sorry. There. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Switch legs. Same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Now we'll go into our chair dips. So we're going to step out, your hands on our chair. You're just going to drop your back down towards the floor, push back up. Try and keep your torso nice and upright. 3, go as low as you can, comfortably for your shoulders. There we go. There's the bench dips. So again, going through this workout, we're working on those movement patterns and qualities that we've talked about. So, excuse me. In the exaggerated lunge step, that's the lunging movement pattern, obviously. Then the Bulgarian split squats is a more advanced version of the lunging pattern. With the bench dips, that's a good vertical pressing exercise. Side plank and reach is a variation on the plank and managing that core stability. The last two exercises we're going to do today, we're going to do a vertical pulling exercise, doing upright rows with the bag, and then offset squats, challenging the stability in that squat pattern, and a good way to work on getting that full range of motion. So we're going to have the backpack sitting on one side. We're doing 6 squats per side, and then the upright row we'll do about 10 rows, getting that pulling that bag up, keeping your elbows above your wrists, and demonstrating that vertical pulling pattern. So take a second here, and then I'll demonstrate this last sequence, and then we'll go into our cool down for the day. Okay. Again, here, make sure you can see my feet. So take the bag here, set it up on one shoulder, feet nice and flat, squat all the way down and back up. We're gonna do 6 per side. 3, 4, 5, 6. So bag down and switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really try and keep that torso upright and the core braced. 5, 6. I'll take the bag and we'll grab it by the top handle, or if you have to, by grabbing it like this. You're going to try to pull your elbows, keeping your elbows up above your wrist the whole time. So like this, you do 10 of these. Good. Okay, so those are our 3 training sequences today. They all, involve, like we talked about, one of those fundamental movement patterns that you really want to dial in and be able to perform effectively. Now we're going to go into a little cool down. So we're going to do the knee to chest pose, downward facing dog, and a favorite of mine, the child's pose. So kind of working, creating some mobility and just moving those joints through a nice and controlled range of motion. At the end of the session, kind of bringing our heart rate back down and kind of mobilizing some of those joints that have been fatigued from our session. So again, we'll do knee to chest pose, downward facing dog, and child's pose. We're going to do about a 20-second hold in each of them. And for those doing the workout at home, I recommend doing 2 rounds of this. So we'll take a second here, and then we'll get into that. We're kind of flying through the session today, a little faster than the ones in weeks past, but as I say that, always take the necessary rest between sets and make sure that you're able to replicate that movement quality that you're working towards. So take a second here, and we'll go through this cool down flow that we have here, and that'll be the session for the day. So go ahead and do it right now. chest pose, you're just going to lay down on your back and then pull your one knee up as close to your chest as you can. And you do the same thing on the other side. So take your knee up towards your chest, head on the ground. Get about 20 seconds per side. Just some good deep breaths while you're here. Now switch sides. And now we'll go into the down dog and child's pose. Again, 20 seconds for each of these. For the downward dog, if you have fairly tight hamstrings like I do, you're just going to try and push your hips up and lengthen your spine through the movement to try and get as much of it as you can, but don't push it, too far. Just try and kind of keep improving your positioning as you go through the 20 seconds. And just remember, when you want to lengthen the position, to do it on your exhale. It's really helpful. So down into the down dog, put your feet out where it's comfortable, and then you're going to push your hips back. And we'll hold here about 20 seconds. Now when you're in this position, you're exhaling, try and lower your heels towards the ground. Push your hips up in the air and lower the heels. Go down onto our knees. Reach our hands out, push your hips back, and rest in the child's pose. Same thing, really try to lengthen the spine. Okay. So you can work through that a second time there to finish up your cool down. It's a good kind of, really good getting the hamstrings going and loosening up the hips. The piriformis and the glute med in there, muscles that tend to really tighten up if you're more sedentary or if you're just people that have to sit at a desk for long periods of time during the day. So those poses can be really great for that, as well as the thoracic spine in the child's pose. A really great opportunity to lengthen that thoracic spine and get away from that kind of hunched over type of position that people spend so much time in. So that's the workout for the day. Yeah, hope anyone following along enjoyed it. I learned something new today. I'll take a second now to open up to questions again, and then we'll wrap up the session for the day.